Welcome back and good morning once again. If you're just joining in, this is still Daybreak Africa. Now today is Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Day, and we'll be discussing some of the challenges Nigerian markets face on a seasonal basis as well as the way forward. And we have our guest in the house, Idowu Akinola, who is an entrepreneur. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak Africa.
Good morning. Good morning and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I think based on today's topic that we're discussing, I think he's in the right position to answer our questions.
Of course, as a business person, it's more like it's being a successful business person at the same time. I guess you're the right person for the sport right now. Now, considering policies, for me, Nigeria has been a country that's actually tend to make policies, and but when it comes to its basic implementation, it's always faulty. We have a lack of proper implementation. As a businessman, how far have you seen our policies as a country and its implementation and its effects, particularly on businesses? Majorly small and medium scale businesses.
Okay, Nigeria is more of a country that does not work by the book. Many economists of the world has designed policies that works for the country. But Nigeria is a multi-diverse country that has different kind of ideology around what pushes its economy. Now, for example, let's take a production plant, for example. Let me just say Dangote, so to say. Now, Dangote is, I think, one of the largest cement producers in Nigeria. Not only Nigeria, in Africa, so to say. But are we actually saying that the cost of cement at which Dangote is selling is the generally approved cost of cement in the world? So if you check the policies of government as regards production of such products, we can actually say monopoly gives that kind of advantage for such level of maybe profit margin, because it has been stated that the profit margin between other countries to cement produced in Nigeria is about 45%. Now, would you say that that policy is working by the book? That shows that a government sat and gave power to some set of people. Now, why basically does Nigeria not really work by those policies? It's not as if we don't really implement it, but we have several stages of corruptions that does not allow the implementation to be fruitful. So in the real sense, at a stage, government felt like, how can we cushion the effect of inflation for small and medium scale enterprises? So they roll out the Bank of Industry and Bank of Agriculture loan. Now, how many business owners were able to access those loans? At least it's a good policy that the government is trying to help business owners. But how many small business owners or small and medium business owners were able to access the loan? Limited. So what is the basic cause? Corruption.
Is it really corruption? Because you're making it sound more like the government's policy is being sentimental. They tend to favor the rich and then staff.
It has always been and it will always be.
Do you have fact for this?
I have sincere facts for it now.
Clean. That they give access to loans every here and there.
They give access to loan.
And
but what are the criteria for getting the loans? I'm a businessman. Do you know what it will take me to get a loan of 500 million? Now let me explain perfectly well so you understand where I'm coming from and where I'm going to.
Please do.
Now, for an average idea that runs in your mind, you might have the idea, but not having a means of implementing it. Now, where does the government comes in? Helping you to implement the idea. So far, it has a 90 or 95% success rate. Now, would you say as a fresh business owner, you can access the loan to implement the ideas? Would you? It's not possible. Because what gives that kind of guarantee to access the loan means that you should have been an already established business owner that has huge turnover and property, or let's say collateral, in like sum to access that kind of loan.
It seems realistic enough. Your point exactly is, they can't just offer you a loan without really having something tangible, see you in motion. You just can't come with, say, paperwork, and then they just
as much
trust you with an amount of money.
Yeah, as much as you can come with paperwork, there are people who, by the virtue of their experience and the little they have been able to push it to an extent. I'm saying people who had an idea, felt it's really going to fly, source for resources to implement the first stage. There are various stages for every production. Now, they were able to source for capital to move it to a particular stage, hoping that the government would take it up from there. Do you know that? Okay, let me give you a little story. A particular businessman in Nigeria who produces biscuits, I won't mention the name, was able to access up to 2 billion naira through back of industry. Yet, small business owner who doesn't need more than 10 million couldn't access it. So when I mean corruption, I'm saying corruption in the sense that their policy favors more of their acronyms, in the sense that that's the basic way they can actually say we are working. We are working in the sense that you can see Mr. A, you can see Mr. B. But do you know that as small as small business owners are, they are the driver of the economy. They push the economy. Small and medium scale enterprises pushes the economy. They drive the economy. So, by calculation, we could say Dangote has a workforce of about maybe 10,000. Now, what is the actual population of the country? We have different statistics that shows that the poverty rate in this country is about 133 million people. And the extremely poor, there are about 93 million people. So why can't Dangote employ at least 20 million from them? Because it does not have the capacity. But you see the small and medium business scales, they are the one who will employ 10 from here, 15 from here. This organization will employ 10 from here. Before you know it, we have more jobs. But government policies for quite a while now works for who knows who. That's the corruption. If you don't know the actual way to access the capital, you can't get it. Okay, let me give you an instance. At a stage, Bank of Agriculture was giving out loan. So the loan was about, I think, 2 million naira per farmer, fish farmers. So it got to a level from Bank of Agriculture, it will come down to state level. That's from the federal. The loan will come, every policy comes down residual to the bottom. Now, they gave out those loans. From there, it's an estimation that if each fish farmer can get to 2 million, it will help boost their production. It got to a level that when it got to state, some people sat on it, I felt 2 million would be way too much. How about we give you 500,000 worth of fish, fingerlings, and give you 500,000 worth of feed. Now, it got to a level they were like, okay, how about we give you 250,000 fish, or we give you 2,000 capacity, depending on the scale of your pond. Okay, what if we give you 250,000 worth of fish, or 2,000 fingerlings? So, it got to a level that people who actually needed the loan could not access it. So, it's more obvious that regardless of how well they plan the policy, the implementation might really come down to the extent they want it to go, but corruption will allow it to fly. And we have constantly observed that. So
in essence, you're trying to say the grants that has been all said and announced by the federal government, we talk about grants, talk about loans, are not exactly working for the people.
It's not getting to the roots. You can do a survey, just to analyze survey. Ask for the number of businesses that crashed because they couldn't access loan. There are millions.
Well, you as a business person, let me ask this question. You as a business person, successful business person, if somebody comes to you, let's ignore corruption. Let's say one of these small enterprises comes up to you that they request a particular amount of loan from you. As a business person, I think you'd have to look into that business to see this prospects, what they are getting out of it, what profit, how sustainable they've been keeping up for them to be able to repay that loan before you can grant the loans to them. Isn't that so?
As simple as that is, there are processes for
They're
everything.
involved.
Now, let me break it down. What you just said is quite interesting, but let me break it down. We have startup businesses that, by the virtue of their experience, they are starting up a business with an ideology. They might have done their field survey, done their analysis, and see the way it will work, but in the real sense, it doesn't work like that. Now, for those categories, it's different from someone who has actually implemented it,
Okay.
drove it down to a stage, maybe stage 2 or stage 1, that needs serious capital to boost it. Okay, let me give you an idea. Currently, fuel is quite expensive. A lot of people are thinking of, okay, how do we bring in electric vehicles? Now, there are policies on ground that does not really allow them to source for forex easily, because Nigeria does not have anything in their foreign reserve. It's empty. So, with the unification of exchange rate lately, dollar is flying between 815 to 7. As today, it's 770. So, you have an idea which has a very good prospect. What's the next phase? Aside the fact that we want to cut down carbon emission, we are trying to cut down the cost of running that same organization. So the best way to go is get an electric vehicle. Now, you are trying to, either by partnership or by sole ownership, trying to initiate an ideology that brings in electric vehicle into Nigeria, maybe by assembling or by direct importation. But forex is a capital challenge. Now, if you come to me for a loan, I can see that that ideology will fly, right? The best I will do is, okay, how can we work it out? What's the best way? How much do you need? Or what route should we use? Should we disassemble them and reassemble in Nigeria? Just like NOC is doing. NOC is bringing in parts and reassemble in Nigeria. Though he's making some frames, build frames in Nigeria, assemble the parts in Nigeria. Most of those parts are quite important. But I'm saying that it's simple when you have someone who has implemented an idea to a stage. It's simple for you to evaluate. What's the customer base? How well can this product fly? How well will it sell? What's the ratio of the profit? That is cost to profit ratio. Now, by calculating all this, you can easily say, oh, okay, I think I can give you this loan.
Okay.
But the best is make it work. Employ people. Smart people. Now, it's different from someone who only has an ideology and a paperwork. It will take great strength to see, okay, this is how this will fly. Because projects on paper are quite different from the actual project. It's when you get to the actualization stage that you now see the challenges involved. For example, if you already have a business idea 6 months ago that needs constant power, by now you'll be frustrated. Fuel is about 510 naira per liter now.
Depending on the region.
Depending on the region. Some are 593, some are 493, some are 498, depending on the region. But just imagine that when you had the ideology, you never factored in the cost of power. By calculation, fuel then was 195. So these are basic things that doesn't really allow business to fly in that direction. But when it comes to incentives, or when it comes to aids or grants, there are ways to which you can actually help business owner that will show that, yes, we can monitor this growth in this dimension. Okay. Jonathan came up with Shopee and some other projects, gave grants to people. In fact, I had friends who benefited from it and employed people. During the execution stage, many of them realized that, oh, this project is going to flop. It was a very brilliant idea. Oh, this project is going to flop. Why? They got to a level they realized that labor will kill the job. And indeed, labor killed. Many Nigerians are not willing to work. Why? Because of the pay. So if the salary is not catchy, they don't find it funny working there. Because currently now, the purchasing power has greatly reduced. Imagine a man who earns a salary of 50K in the past 4 years or 4 years ago, and see any 40K now. What will 40K buy now? What will 40K buy 4 years ago? Would you expect the same man to still pursue his career, working in that same firm, collecting 40,000 naira?
Now, a little bit away from policies, I tend to have conversation with certain small-scale business owners, and it was more like most of them actually were frustrated with the issue of taxes.
Okay.
Now, do you think taxes upon small and medium-scale businesses is quite unreasonable?
We all have to pay tax. Is that direct or indirect?
It's more like the intimidation by authorities. It seems high, and it, for some, it's more like they never really had such income, but yet they pay more than they earn. So it's quite impossible. Do you really agree with such?
I pay tax in about, I think, 5 different sections. I'll pay for signage, personal income tax. I'll pay for business permit. I'll pay for internally generated revenue. I pay for about 5 different taxes from the government.
Has it been overwhelming for you, or you think
it has always been overwhelming, in the sense that we are taxpayer. We should get dividends for it. I can't pay tax and not enjoy the dividends. It doesn't make any sense. So even if you charge me 2 naira and I don't see the effect of the 2 naira, it doesn't make sense. Many great nations are built by tax. United Kingdom, for example. But you'll be happy to pay because you can see it working.
So you're saying it's fair on you, it's not overwhelming.
I'm not saying it's fair.
Okay.
I'm saying that I've gotten to a level where I realize that it might not be now, it might be tomorrow. There are consequences for everything.
Absolutely.
So I have no choice than to pay. That's my own belief. It's not as if it's quite easier for me. I'm not in the actual fact of it. I'm not even generating up to what I pay, in the sense that for personal income tax, for example, you have to check how much I make personally, my worth personally, how much do I get monthly, to now say, okay, this is the exact size of tax I should pay. But here is always on paper, assumption. This is where I'm getting to. If we have a working system, it's never a big deal to pay tax. The best to do is you pay online, because the whole system is working. You can't hide. That's what I'm going to. There will be an auditor to audit your business, to file a report and say this is how much we've made. Small business owners don't do that, but multinational companies does. They have auditors that will audit and say, okay, this is how much we generated at the end of the year or at the end of the month. This is how much our tax should be. Then we are paying straight to the government. But you can't expect a small business owner who is running a business of no more than 5 million naira to now get, when I mean 5 million naira, I'm just saying overall investment is 5 million naira. To now say, okay, I'm going to employ an auditor to audit my account. This is no where I'm going to. So it's more like we don't really have a functioning system that even rewards us. But when it comes to tax, government wants to take tax. Okay, what should you do for you to get that tax from me? Invest in my business. That's where I'm going to. For an average investment that government does, maybe by, okay, lately now, I think they're going to remove subsidy on power. So you have about 1,000 naira to 10 units. Now imagine someone, let's just roughly imagine someone baking cake or baking bread and uses power, not gas. How much of the unit would you consume for a daily production? You can see where the questions are.
Yeah.
And at the end of the month, you come and say, yeah, come and pay tax. Does it make sense?
It's all.
So those are the basic things that we really need to check. That's why I said, even if government is saying pay 3 naira, to some people, it still doesn't make sense.
For a moment, you're making it seem as if the government are really have no reward system, and their effort so far has been futile. But I mean, to some extent, you could actually agree with the government that they have been trying to make certain things, put certain things in order. In as much we have our challenges and hiccups here and there. Making it sound as if the government has been doing almost next to nothing. Isn't that a little too harsh?
Let's use this analysis
Okay.
to buttress my point. Government is for the people, not against the people. Now, how do you get the needs of the people when you come down to their level and you understand their pains, right? You make policies based on what a few set of people feels is the right direction. Okay, for example, let's say fuel subsidy. Now, fuel subsidy is not even going to affect the rich. That's where I'm going to. Do you know it won't affect the rich? It will only make the poor to be poorer. Now, this is the analysis. An average rich man who owns a company does not fuel his car by himself. The company fuels the car. So does it feel the effect?
No.
Exactly.
What so far do you think has been a challenge for young entrepreneurs? Is it more like the policy that's hindering them not to go into ventures, or something else totally hindering young entrepreneurs? Because it's more like the small and medium scale businesses is really not thriving, and we see no presence, per se, coming out to want to really hold on to something.
We have a government that just left,
Okay.
an administration that just left, who came on board 2015 and left just this year. I'm not going to comment about the new administration. I'm going to talk about the policies of the last administration and its effect on most businesses. Now, do you know that if you conduct a survey, more than 60% of companies that were in existence before the administration came on board collapsed? And more than 80% of products that some multinational companies are producing also went out of stock. They couldn't produce anymore. Why? The government came on board and made some policies with the mindset that it's really going to boost the economy. But somewhere there, they were not considering the fact that there's always a back door for every policy. Now, what do I mean by the back door? Some policies will make some people more richer. Let's take dollar exchange rate for instance. You made a dual exchange rate where parallel market exists on its own and CBN official rate exists on its own, right? Mm-hmm. You made that basically because you felt if truly you are pressed to get dollar, and there are policies through which CBN stated for all commercial banks owner not to sell dollar anyhow. You only get dollar either by PTA, I think that's from different forms. Then there is a stipulated amount of dollar that you can get for PTA. That's an average student who is traveling out of the country. Business owner has a limitation. I think then it's about $20,000 every quarter. Those policies were quite fascinating to reduce importation, so you won't spend more dollar, right? That was what the policies were quite meant for.
And then, to some extent, the person actually tends to invest in the people. Now, I remember the issue of rice, when a certain border had to be short, and then farmers were actually, should I use the word reimbursed, or invested into, they were given certain amounts of money, supplies, fertilizer, tractors, and such as that. Now, isn't that policy worth it?
Kebbi State alone produced about 3-point-something million tons of rice, which can actually feed Nigeria for half. Nigeria consumes about 7-point-something millions. Now, you mentioned right policy. Rice, there is a policy that bans importation of foreign rice. But come to think of it, foreign rice was about 8,500 per bag when the administration came on board. Right?
Yeah.
How much is Nigerian rice now?
About 30,000.
38 to 42,000, depending on the breed you are buying, right? Now, in the space of 8 years, can it justify the fact that locally produced rice was more expensive than the foreign rice? Does this show that the policy worked?
So in
That's
essence, it's
it.
more like the entire policy made by the previous administration.
That same
was
policy
enough.
still made some people richer. Now, let me tell you one little secret. I'm not supposed to say this on here, but do you know that some cabals stood behind scarcity of rice to jack up the price?
That's interesting.
So they produce rice. It's not as if Nigeria is not really producing rice. We are producing. Remember the rice pyramid in Abuja?
Yeah.
Be it imported, be it sourced from other countries, I don't care. But that the government wanted to show that, okay, we are now producing rice. This is, just imagine this volume. This is the largest in Africa. Now, if truly the effect of what you intend to do was to encourage Nigerian consumption or Nigerian produce consumption, so to say, the cost of rice shouldn't have gone as high as 38,000 naira per bag from what it used to be, because it was lesser than foreign rice then. Foreign rice was about 8,500, 10,000, depending on the type you are buying.
Yeah.
So it's quite funny that some set of people produce rice, store the paddy, expect scarcity, jack up the price, and it keeps going up every year.
All right, we're almost out of time.
That
Almost out
just
of time at
supports
this
saying
point.
when it said everybody
Well,
strives from, like everybody, there are some kind of people that strive on the poverty of a country. Everybody gets to feed from each particular one.
Not
Everybody down for that's
just
coming.
everybody, some selected people.
amount
Selected
of
person.
people,
Okay,
yeah.
I guess business has to do with losses and gains. But
Absolutely.
I know we have actually banked more on policy and implementation by the government. So, General, what do you think should be the encouraging factor, by the government to actually encourage small or beginning stage
Enabling
enterprise?
environment. Make business conducive,
How do you mean conducive?
in the sense that, okay, part of the business I run.
In few minutes, we're out of time. In few minutes.
Okay, part of the business I run a supermarket. Do you know how much my daily running cost got to at a stage that I couldn't bear with? The best I could do was to power the whole place with solar, just to cut the cost. Many people cannot achieve. Do you understand? Many people cannot achieve that. Now, I can't even get that. It doesn't really make sense for me to get loan, procure loan for such procurement, because I have to calculate many things. How long will it take me to pay back this loan? Won't it affect our production rate in the sense that what we retail? Are we, if we keep paying this amount of money per month, are we still going to be able to meet up with our input, our investment?
Well, I guess I believe we have an administration that will actually consider that. Hopefully, they will give us that enabling environment, like you said. Thank you very much for coming on Daybreak
Thank
Africa.
you so much.
Again.
We hope to have you another time.
I wish we could have more time to discuss this.
Absolutely. That is
Definitely
always a
will.
constraint over here.
Thank you
So
so
at
much.
this point, calling the wrap from our Ondo studio, I'll be handing you over to our Lagos studio. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.
I remain Fatimah Ibrahim.